Arys, fix the cup.
Oh, okay. Good?
Yeah, good.
All right, let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Who and How Club. It is your boy Arys checking in. You know the slogan, you are the Who and How Club. I am the Who and How Club, and we are the Who's and How's of this world. Without you, without me, there is no we. So while we're all here together, how are we going to spend this time? You know, what are we going to do while we're all here together? Are we going to pick each other's brains on certain topics and experiences, life experiences and perspectives? Or are we going to be enemies? Are we going to ignore one another as we walk by each other on the streets? Or are we going to say hi and hello and figure out who we are and how we became the who's that we are? That's what the Who and How Club represents. We focus on who you are and how you became the you that you are today. But everyone has a journey. There's that in-between stage that we don't really get to cover. Think about people who just pop up in our favorite fields, artistic fields like rappers, musicians, actors. We know that they're famous today. We know that they're our favorite artist and creator, and we see them on screen, but we don't know what it took for them to get to that point. We don't sit and dive into their deepest traumas or their anxieties or the things, the hard work that they had to put in order to get to that moment that they're at today. So this show represents that journey, that before you see me today, that journey, you know. So we have a really special guest today, and this episode is going to be called Long Time Coming. Or Long Overdue. I haven't decided on the title yet, but it's going to be one of those two because I have a special person next to me today who is joining me, and we've been speaking about getting him on the show for so long, and even though he hasn't been on the show, he's still been in my life. So, you know, we've kept in contact, but today is his day finally. So you want to introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, I'm Ed Heeley. Been around for a while.
He has. It's really special for me to have you here today because you mean so much to me, and we're going to get into that on how you and I know each other, how we entered each other's lives. You said you've been here for a while. What does that mean to the people?
I turned 70 in January.
So you're at stage 70.
Stage 70, and skydiving and scuba and snorkeling, and try to be as active as I can.
What's it like being 70 in this day and age? Like, what does 70 mean to you? I'm sure it's more than just a number, right?
Mentally, I still feel like I'm young in my 20s because there's so many people in my life like yourself that are younger that keep me fresh. Even if we're some of my young actor friends, actor directors, working with Leslie, even if it's going over material I studied a long time ago, it's got a fresh approach.
Yes. So
we're always continually having to deal with life experiences. Yes. So that never changes. Yes. So how you deal with them should be fresh. It should always be fresh. You should be in the moment. I'm the father of 4 sons, and they age me. That was a bad joke. Where's my?
Hold on, we got it. But when you were growing up, did you you know, for some of us, for people who come from a certain community, ethnic group, etc., you know, turning 70 seems so far-fetched. Sometimes even turning 30 seems so far-fetched for some folks. They don't think that they'll get there. Yeah. Did you ever think like that at any point, like that you would get to 70?
No, I thought I'd be gone by 60. A former athlete, always did my own stunts when I was acting back in the early years. Always lived life on the edge, you know, rally and stunt drove as well. And when I was spearfishing in the Caribbean, I'd always go after the barracuda, which is a dumb move. Yeah, like, you know.
You're trying to shorten the journey when you do stuff like that.
It just seems so far away.
Right.
And I do have a a quality of life that where I can no longer be active, both mentally and physically, I think it's time to move on and see what's in the great unknown, you know.
We're going to touch on that. Let's do a little cheers and celebrate today's accomplishment of finally having you on the show. First off,
it's great to be here.
Eye to eye, eye to eye. Eye to eye. I know it's not alcohol, but actually, some say it's bad luck to cheers with water. Is that a saying?
I've never heard
no?
that.
Okay.
No.
Then that person's crazy. So, do you think you made a comment about like it might be? I'm sure you've seen a lot in your day and age and stuff like that, and just being alive for that long or whatever. But you think like when is your time? When do you feel like it's time to not do those things, or like you could kind of chill and relax and zone out? Like you don't really have to be so active anymore. Is there a limit for you? Is there a stage that you see for yourself?
I think I'd go crazy if I wasn't continuing to work. You know, I've always followed my heart. So, both in personal relationships and work.
Yeah.
So it just keeps transitioning. You know, the poet in me came back 9 years ago. He used to write back in the day in the 20s and then stopped, and I actually started writing it again. I stopped because of a woman and began because of a woman, you know. But it was primarily an exercise to transition from educational and documentary style writing, because I wanted to do a little more fiction writing. And it just caught hold, and going to publish my first book.
So we're going to talk about inspirations and stuff like that, because I think people, they hear the number 70, 60, 50, whatever, right? And they're like, things might slow down for me when I get that age. That's their notion, right? Like they don't know what it's like once they get to that stage. But seeing you as an individual who is 70 and you're still pushing, you're still pursuing the things that have meant the most to you, the things that inspire you, the things that make you you. Right? Mm-hmm. So there's no stopping for you. You just keep that going, you know?
Yeah, it's second nature. It's not like I have to think about it, you know. And I'm not in a position where I'm working at a job function to pay the bills and I hate what I'm doing, you know.
Right, you're doing what you love, which is being yourself.
Yeah, and it's rags to riches, because development costs on every project you have to incur, and then when it works, you reap the benefits. Then you go back to starving, you know.
Yeah, it's yeah. You have it, then you don't, then you have it again. You have it to not have it again.
Yeah, you know. So
I'm sure a lot of creators can relate to that.
But that's not the motivation. The motivation is the interaction with people. Even the poetry, writing the poetry, we performed it before the pandemic, you know, and great audience, working with other performers in a band, you know, that could improv as we recited. So I mean, it was great times. It really was wonderful. You know,
it keeps you young. It keeps you youthful.
Yeah, and it keeps you mentally alert and tuned in.
Yeah,
right. You know,
ladies and gentlemen, when Ed says we performed, like he literally means that. Like him and I are a dynamic duo when it comes to performing poetry together, and we have our little shtick. That we're going to be bringing to a city near you very soon. Unfortunately, we can't remember our dynamic duo's name and what we titled ourselves together. But
I think there's video with it.
Right.
So we'll just we'll retract because on our intro.
But yeah, you and I sort of met in an artistic space, and I think art and creativity kind of brought us together. Right? Would you agree?
Well,
do you remember?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was actually watching your technique in meeting all of the beautiful young ladies that were walking up and down Yonge Street. And No, it was, yeah.
Yeah,
we were
that's
going
how-
to the same tattooist, and
Yes, yeah.
then we started going to Harlem East,
Yes,
with Black Lotus, and that was another great audience,
yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, I
so-
was immediately drawn to you because
My good looks.
stop this. Oh, sorry. We're not gonna clap for that. We're gonna laugh for that. I don't know if it was like I've had mentors in my life, and a lot of the mentors in my life, they've come and gone. You know, like they're at stages. They pop up in certain stages in my life where I guess the universe knows that I need this in my life right now. I need this specific individual, especially like a father figure, because I've spoken about this on the show, not knowing my father. You know, anytime I come across some sort of male figure, they become that in a sense, but it's very temporary. But you've been in my life for many years, and I think I'm stuck with you. I think
it's probably coming up on 10 years.
I don't think it's been that long. Where are we at? We're 2021. It hasn't been that long, but
Blue God.
Yeah, it could be. Not 10, but
I'm trying to remember what tattoo I was getting when I
around
first
20.
met you.
It's been like 2013, 2014, around that time.
I think a little earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, so you're going to be at my wedding, pretty much. I've accepted that, and I'm okay with that, right? But I know that knowing you in that format, like there are still things that I don't know about you. So having you here today is a perfect platform to dive deeper into like who Ed Heeley is, and maybe I can discover some things that I don't know about you, and vice versa. So let's, in Who and How fashion, we always ask the question like, who are you, right? And we always look for people to not define themselves by their names or by what they do, but really finding a different answer in that, because it's a real difficult question to answer. Do we even know who we are? You being at 70, share that perspective. Do you know who you are?
Well, I certainly have an interpretation of who I am, and I have an evaluation on where my conscious and not conscious components are at, which is always something I've strived for, to make them inherently compatible. We have to be careful of what I call the rational con, as in, the con, right?
Let's go.
Because intellectually, which is rational, it tends to be justification and self-justification, which can be tremendously misleading if you're trying to pursue the truth. And speaking of truth, I think when we're placing any type of validation on anything, we tend to use truth oftentimes as or honesty. We can't do it with accuracy, but it becomes the self-justification. So oftentimes people will say, well, at least I'm honest, as a justification for some sort of screw up. Right,
ill behavior, something that you've done deliberately to hurt someone.
So what came to me in dealing with a couple of people in my life was that we have to strive to make honesty, truth, and accuracy exactly the same thing. They have to be unified with the same perspective. So, and I think that's when you
know yourself.
Then you know your truth.
Your truth,
as opposed to just a rational, conscious, intellectual,
or also
sequence of a deductive argument, right, to justify an interpretation.
Or also defining it based on what the world is telling you or society is telling you what who you are should look like or be defined as, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that.
So that's what's coming to me.
Was there a point in time in life where you're like, you thought you knew yourself, and then something else happened and you're like, oh no, I actually know me now kind of thing?
No. Because it's always a stage of discovery. I'm continuing to discover myself, or maybe savor living, which I did in the 20s, in my 20s, not the 20s.
In your 20s.
Yeah, you know, we savored everything when we were young. We just did it a hell of a lot faster.
Yes.
And more indigestion.
But I feel like it's the opposite now. Nothing is being savored for the young. Like the young folks, they're not savoring anything. They're really in this rush to grow older and be something that they're not. They're not enjoying their youth. They don't even know how to be young anymore because they're so exposed to adult things. And social media has a lot to play in that, right? Do you agree?
It's a very good question. I think social media really plays to the egotistical side of an individual.
Yes.
It's really not interactive. It's active.
Active.
I'm putting it out there like a selfie or my story, and people react to it.
It's reactive,
But there's no dialogue in real time going on.
Yeah. What do you think social media would have been like in your stage when you were younger, stage of life?
We had a lot of meaning, especially in relationships, because we had to write letters.
And the pigeons delivered them, right? The pigeons delivered them, right?
Almost, right?
You just missed the threshold where the pigeons were the delivery men.
But we were prolific letter writers,
yes.
You know,
yes.
And we spent more time with each other in real time, person to person. It wasn't all this texting. I mean,
barriers.
I spend so much time texting every day because I have to. You're right. I have to respond to who's texting me.
Yeah.
So the phone call back in the day was also skeptical because you couldn't see body language. You couldn't see inflection, you know, in the shape of the eyes, the emotion in the eyes. You're hearing tones, right? Yeah. And now, you know, you crave for the telephone call because the text is so it's so misinterpretive.
Yes. Yes.
Because there is no emotion in a text unless you're being very obvious and blunt.
Yes. And I promise you, I'm not trying to aid you with all these types of questions. I don't want us to harp on, you know, that like what it was like when you were growing up versus now. But I think it's important for the listeners and viewers to really get, I think maybe be even awakened by the things that you're sharing, because there's a huge disconnect. There's a huge barrier when it comes to communicating with people or being around people. We have to be reminded of what the real stuff used to be like and maybe tap back into it, because we're missing something now. We're missing something now with this. Like we're walking with people in our pockets pretty much, so we feel like there's no other need to be around people in a different way, in a healthier way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you've been able
but something that's incredible that we didn't have is you have instant access to anybody anywhere in the world.
Yes.
You know, I did an hour and a half video talk with my friend in Moscow last week.
Yeah.
Didn't cost me anything, thanks to WhatsApp and Messenger. I mean, all the platforms
Zoom
are for free.
Yeah.
You know, we had to be careful of the long distance bill back in the day. And
so there are pluses. It's like a double-edged sword.
Again, it's a tool to be used, and how do you use it, right? Are you in command of the technology, or is the technology shaping and molding you?
When you were younger, right, and your father, who, you know, like when you compare your life now at 70, did you get to see your father get to 70?
No.
You didn't get to. Did he pass?
I will be the first Heeley and male on the Heeley side to make 70.
Get 70 and above.
In 3 generations. Now, I have my mother's heart and lungs,
Yeah.
so I'll make it.
Cheers to another 70. Another 70.
You know. But my uncle, my dad's brother, my grandfather, and the one, my great-grandfather, I can't remember when he passed, but those 3 didn't make it. I think my grandfather made it to 70 and passed.
Yeah.
But
that Lazarus pit helps, man. You found it. You found it. Wow.
But you know, it gets us thinking. With all the bullshit that's going on with our patriarchal religions, and in my case, I've rejected them a long time ago. It gets you thinking about what's out there, if anything, right? Because we all know you can't destroy anything or everything. You can't destroy energy or mass. It transitions into something else, right?
Yes, yes.
Even if it's ash.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
well,
do we have a soul, you know?
Right.
I think we do, which I think is a harmony of all of our components, like the conscious, not conscious, you know, all the emotions.
Yeah.
Right?
Where there's a spark. There's a spark, right?
But not in a religious sense.
No.
There's an essence of who we are that makes us individuals, I think. Does that move on, you know?
Right. Well, does it move on? Like, we'll never know until it happens to us. Like, there's the saying, like, oh, you only live once. Do you? Like, how would you know unless you actually didn't live, like you weren't alive, whatever we consider to be alive, or being in the physical.
But more than 1 billion people believe in reincarnation.
Right.
And have done for centuries.
Right.
Right? So... And again, I never worry about it because it's something I won't know till it happens. Right. So it's like a good argument on following Jesus, for example. Whenever you're in a discussion with an evangelical.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That guy.
You know.
Do you
follow his teachings because they make sense, they're humane, and they're good? Or do you do it because of the authority that you believe he's the Son of God? Right? Well, he's the Son of God, so I got to do this, right? You know. And
as you said that, just a voice in my head came into my mind, and it's Carlos's voice. And Carlos has always said, "Don't talk about religion on the show or politics." But you and I have spoken about these things offline, right? And I agree with those.
But how can we not?
Yeah.
When we're dealing with we're continuing to deal with the residential school structure. I mean, how can we not? You know, the problem with truth and reconciliation is there's no accountability in that equation.
All right, we'll get to that.
Right?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I wanted to ask you before we dive deep into that stuff, like, and then we can move forward from the age stuff. Like, was there ever a moment in time where you found it a bit difficult to sort of adapt to the times? Being at the stage of life that you're at, knowing where you've come from and what things were like back then, as you're going this way in life, like, was there ever a moment where you found it difficult to adapt to the changes, whether it's this or how people communicate, how you have to operate under the umbrella or certain structures created that would pop up? Because you've seen a lot.
Yes, of course, because that whole structure of being cool, that we all want to be. Mm-hmm. We all want to be cool and trendy and accepted. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I guess, a part of our human society structure.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I don't know how to exactly term it, but, you know. So you're always competing because that is a competitive structure.
Yes.
because you want to be the coolest, don't you? Right?
Well, that's a human. I feel like that's a human flaw, though.
Yes.
That's like a human
Yes.
being flaw. Like we're always we're in comparison, even down to suffering. We compare suffering, even, you know, like we're always in this competitive. We're competitive.
That's right.
It's our
Yeah.
nature, right, to be
Yeah.
that. But I think it's a flaw. Did you overcome? Were you ever in competition with anyone? Because when I look at you, I don't see you being a competitive person or comparing yourself to anyone or being in that, like, the ego. Was there ever a time where you, whether it was in acting or, producing anything?
Yeah, but I was shaped much earlier by being an athlete. So I was in a world of, even when I played team sports, there was a competition with my teammates because they were competing.
Yes.
Whether it was for the prettiest cheerleader or the best player, or, the competition was inherent. A lot of what and of course it was physical competition. So I competed in martial arts.
Yeah.
It was
But
man on man, right?
Right.
And
But
hockey.
That's like, in my mind, that's like isolated competitiveness.
But when you're,
But you as an individual outside, once you leave those domes or these, you as the makeup of you, would you consider yourself to be like you're in competition with anyone? Was there ever a time throughout your life, like maybe a sibling?
I was the oldest of 5. My sister was the next one down, and then 3 brothers. So there was enough of an age gap. There was no. I think I was a really good older brother. Mm. But of course, my brothers would have to answer that, right? Right. But I think
you've never seen like someone like, that's why I look up to you, because you're Ed. You're like one of one. I've never seen you to be in competition, or your ego has never really, you treat everyone equally as well.
Yeah, I think I did back in the day. I mean, I had a notorious reputation in high school for being a ladies' man.
Jesus.
But it was because when I made the transition to arts in high school from athletics, again, following my heart, was my girlfriend at the time. And because I was sick of the jock world. It just, the type of personality that the athletic world created in high school was very destructive.
Yes.
And I was sick of it. So I easily figured out I had the male point of view. So most of my friends were female because they had a different perspective, right?
Yes.
But of course that was misinterpreted because my jock friends, or straight friends, had a few gay friends back in the day, like in high school.
Yeah.
It was...
when it came to the art stuff, to the artistic realm that you were kind of...
there were a couple of gay athletes as well, but it was all under the radar, right? Completely under the radar.
Yeah.
And... but they only saw women in terms of a heterosexual relationship. When I had my production company, the majority of my staff was female because of the nature that's inherent in a female. Sure, they can be nasty people and competitive and everything else like that. But I find them more emotionally balanced with their intellect. So there is more of a connection between their rational side and the emotional side. And when they make a decision, they stick to it. Especially in relationships. I've seen so many relationships where they break up and the male, whether it's a boyfriend or a husband, still wants to be able to play with his wife or ex-wife.
Yes.
Whereas a woman, when she makes up her mind, it's done. It's done.
Yeah. Well, that's because I feel like women have more, it's a feeling.
And it's a gross exaggeration as well.
Of course.
But there's...
Not to generalize, but I feel like women most women can, they go based off their feelings. And if they feel, once they're emotionally detached, that's it. they're gonna go elsewhere. But a man, it's like an ego thing. It damages their ego, so they want to continue to have control over what they used to have, or to keep something going. You know, they want to feed into their egos.
Absolutely.
Once you lose control, your ego is shot.
Yeah.
Because this individual doesn't want you anymore, or you know, they're over you. It's like, how could you be over me? I know we're not together, but we're connected somehow, some way. But emotionally, she's elsewhere. Yeah. Because she's done with you, you know. So it's a bit scary when it comes to relationships. I've been solo for a little bit now. So as you know, so what's it like dating in your day and age? Do you date?
I don't date.
You on any online profiles or anything like that? No. You don't believe in that stuff? No. You're not even on Instagram? No. Yeah.
Because I'd be spending all my time, right? Yeah. You know, between texting. Facebook is a necessity for business. Yes. But you get so caught up.